what always struck me as odd is how so many people didn't invest in themselves in learning new stuff. They come in, do the same thing over and over again, moan about the fact that nothing changed, but then they didn't do anything to change anything. You know, and I know people that I work with that 20 years later were still doing the same job, whereas I'd had 10 different jobs by then.
Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Mary and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and we're sharing their stories. We want to empower you to become the person you want to be and to go beyond your dreams.
This morning we have an incredible guest here at the Island Works. We're on the Isle of Sheppey, and we're just with Paul Andrews. Paul is a legend of a serial entrepreneur in Kent, and we have a great privilege to interview him. We met him last year at Zoe Live. He was the compere, and we were listening to him and thinking, wow, this guy is amazing. And we had a chat with him afterwards, and he invited us to come on the Bunker Radio, which is down in Tenterden. And we met him, had an amazing chat, and we just realised what an amazing guy he is. So here we are with Paul. Welcome to the podcast, Paul.
Well, thank you so much, Richard and Mary. What a build-up. Yeah, I don't know if I can live up to any of that. I'm more of a legend than a legend.
No, you are a legend, honestly. It's very funny because when we met you, when you were talking on, that was the first time we met Zoe as well, isn't it?
It was.
This morning I was trying to think how we end up there, and I couldn't figure it out. I don't know how we went to that Zoe Live.
You found it. You found it on the internet. LinkedIn. It was on LinkedIn.
And my first impression from Paul was, you remember when you were talking and there was that screen and it was, how is called that platform is changed now? Is it called X now?
Yes. Yeah, no, it was Twitter.
Twitter.
We talked about Twitter.
And I was thinking, because I've never been too much familiar with Twitter, and I was thinking, why these guys using this platform? That was my first thing. But after that, when we came to the radio as well, you told me that there is something about it that is very interactive.
Yeah. Of all the social media platforms, Twitter, or X as it's called now, is the only one that's real time. Yeah. So when you post, people see it immediately. They respond immediately. Facebook, LinkedIn, all the rest of it is not real time. You can post and not see the post for 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah. With the radio show especially, because it's live, I need interaction there and then. So I've always used Twitter. Yeah.
But it was quite interesting to see that these people actually, they were tweeting and there was an interaction happening in the room.
Straight away.
Which was, that was my first impression. And I never knew who we're talking with until, again, after the podcast, on every event that is happening in Kent, and it come up on my LinkedIn, your name is there. How this works, how you became such a, I don't think there is event without you.
There's an easy answer to that, Mary. I work for nothing.
No, don't say that. We talk about
I do them for free, so that's how I get all the gigs.
But let's see, how did you get to this point? Take us.
Funny enough, Zoe spoke to me last week. They're just planning ZC Live for this year now.
Yeah. Are you going to be there?
And I'm going to be comparing it again,
Okay, fantastic. We see you there for sure.
Yeah.
We already have our tickets.
I love doing those events because I meet hundreds and hundreds of people and hear lots of people presenting. And it's really useful for me, which is why I work for free.
But you work and not only for free, and you do brilliant things. So shall we start from the beginning? That back in the time. Just tell us how your journey starts after secondary school, let's say.
Right. Okay. That's a long time ago. I went to a really poor boys' secondary school. And when I say I went, I popped in a couple of times to see what it was like.
Okay.
And then once I hit 14, I didn't really bother to go back, except I did turn up one day and they told me to go away. So I did.
Wow.
And the school was in Maidstone. And the headmaster told me, I don't want you here anymore, just clear off. I went, okay, fair enough. And as I walked out of the gates, opposite the school was a paper mill. and they were just nailing up a sign, vacancies. So I walked across the road. I went, can I apply? And they went, yes, go to the foreman's office. It's down there on the left. So I walked down to the foreman's office, and there were about 4 or 5 kids sitting in the waiting room. And the foreman came out and said, right, we're interviewing. I want you all to stand against that wall. So we all stood against the wall, and he had a piece of wood, and he put it across the tallest kid's head. And I was the shortest, so he said, you've got the job. And that was the interview. For being the shortest. Wow. I was 4'11" when I was 14.
At least it was an advantage at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've grown a bit since then.
Yeah. So I didn't even know what I got. So I got this job, and he said, you start Monday. I went home, didn't mention it to my parents because I thought they don't need to know.
Seeing I doing well at school.
Yeah. So on the Monday, I turned up at 7:30. It was a place called Turkey Mill, which is no longer a paper. The Turkey Mill exists. It's now a business park, but then it was a paper mill. So I turned up on a Monday morning and went in, and I was assigned to work in the machine room, which is the main room where the paper was made.
Yep.
And my job was grease monkey.
Go around greasing all the machinery.
And I had to grease all the machinery, which was all steam-driven, coal-driven.
Yep.
And I had to do it while it was running. So I had to. The reason they wanted someone short is because I had to crawl in the machines. It's very Victorian. I had to crawl in the machines while they were running and grease and oil the bearings, and then pick up what's called the broke. And broke is paper that's come off the machine and fallen into a pit.
Yeah.
So they gave me a pot of grease and a mallet. And the pot of grease was to grease the bearings, and the mallet was to hit the water rats.
Oh, no.
Of which there were dozens under the machine.
I mean, they are messy, steamy. I mean, even the modern paper mills, they're incredible. I mean, the heat inside the building and around the machinery is phenomenal.
Red hot. Yeah.
So it's not a great job.
It was not a good job at all, except it was a job. And I was paid, I did 12-hour shifts. I was 14. I started in July 1970, and I was 15 in August 1970, which is why I was allowed to work, as it were. But I actually did 12-hour shifts, which was even illegal then, certainly now. But I did 12-hour shifts, so 12 on days and then 12 on nights. And I got paid £8, 10 and 6 a week, which was fantastic.
You were the wealthiest kid in the area.
Yeah, I was the only one that had any money. I used to give my mum £2. Well, I had to pay tax and national, what was then called an employment stamp. And if I remember rightly, I paid 2 and 6, half a crown. See, what's that? 12p. 12p for my employment stamp, and I paid 10 shillings, which is 50p tax. And then I gave my mum £2, which left me with like £5, which was great because you could buy a packet of cigarettes for like 30p.
It was not that bad for a week.
No.
So I worked at Turkey Mill there. I got the night shift supervisor, a chap called Arthur Ells, gave me the greatest piece of advice that I've ever had. And to this day, nearly 60 years later, I still follow his advice. And he said to me, son, first learn your own job, then learn someone else's. And that stood me all the way through my working career, and I've sought to do that in everything I've done, which is first understand what I'm supposed to be doing, and once I feel comfortable with what I'm doing, is learn what you're doing. Yeah. And that bore fruit really, really early on, because after I'd been a grease monkey for about 8 months, and I really didn't enjoy it. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world.
No.
And I got injured quite a lot. I sort of bent my finger. I got my finger caught in the machine and stuff like that. I thought, I don't need to do this. I need to do something better. And there was a role called dryerman. And a dryerman was responsible for putting the watermark in the paper. Turkey Mill made very high quality paper. They also made paper for banknotes. And there's a thing called a dandy roll, which is the device that puts a watermark in the paper. And a guy called a dryerman is the man that manages all the watermarks. And there was a dryerman called Greg, who I got on with really well. And I kept pestering him and going, well, how does that work then? How'd you do that? How'd you do this? And he said, well, you do it like this, and here's the dandy roll room with all the dandy rolls in. And I was fascinated because the paper mill had been there like 200 years, and they had dandy rolls from the 17th and 18th century. Beautiful, beautiful things.
So, are these rolls? So they have the symbol embossed into it, and then you put the ink onto it.
Basically, it was a 15-foot metal pole with copper wiring around it, and whatever the symbol for the watermark was made out of copper wire and raised on the outside of it. Okay. So an average dandy roll would have 10 symbols across it, and then it would lay on the paper, and it would imprint it, and as it imprinted it, and this is why it's called a watermark, there was a suction thing that sucked all the water out and left the imprint in the paper. And that's why it's called a watermark. Yeah. Anyway, so Greg, the dryman, was explaining all this to me and showing me how to do it. We then produced a piece of paper. At that stage, the paper is like blotting paper. Yeah, so you can't write on it because the ink it has further treatments. He said, but you need, because this is high quality, very expensive paper, you need to make sure it's right. And the way you do that is by weighing it. Yeah. So you have to weigh a sheet this big. And he got a sheet of paper and he sucked it and he went, yep, that's the right way. I went, hold on a minute. No, I'm not falling for that. Because being a factory, we'd gone all through when you first started, they sent you for a sky hook and a pot of tartan paint and
a long wait.
And a long wait and all those kind of things. Yeah. And he sucked this piece of paper and I'm not falling for that, Greg. I am not going, I've done all those other things. I'm not falling for it. He went, no, you can tell the weight of it by the amount of alum that's in the paper, and you can tell that by tasting it. Really? So anyway, he had me tasting bits of paper, and I'm yeah, okay. And he went, well, see how accurate you are, and then weighed it on the scales. Yeah, you're pretty near there. The fact is that the paper should weigh the right amount because it's all, it shouldn't be wrong, basically. No. Anyway, fast forward a couple of months after this, and I arrived for work on the night shift, and the general manager's standing in there, and that's unheard of. Ooh, what's going on here? So I said, what's happened? And they said, yeah, we're going to have to shut the mill, which is a big deal because once you turn the furnaces off and everything, it takes a long time to restart it. Lose a lot of money. Why? Greg quit, the dryman, and the second dryman, whose name I can't remember, is off sick. We haven't got a dryman, so we can't do anything. I'll do it. And I went, what do you know about it? And I went, I think I do. Yeah. And he went, okay, tell us about that piece of paper. So I suck it, and they go, oh, hold on a minute. How did you know how to do that? I went, well, Greg trained me. And I went, okay, well, you can do it tonight. So I did it, and I got the job full time. Yeah. So, it shows you learning somebody else's job. It didn't last long because then the miners went on strike. We had no coal and
but it's example that because you learn something, it helped you at some point.
Exactly, And the rest of my career, when I worked for other people, follows that same pattern. That I got a job, then learned somebody else's, and by serendipity or, I don't know, having a big gob or whatever, I managed to weed myself into new jobs. And what always struck me as odd is how so many people didn't invest in themselves in learning new stuff. They come in, do the same thing over and over again, moan about the fact that nothing changed, but then they didn't do anything to change anything. And I know people that I work with that 20 years later were still doing the same job, whereas I'd had 10 different jobs by then.
Talking about that, how do you think, from your perspective, doing different jobs and changing jobs, do you find it beneficial and much better rather than being stuck on? Yeah,
absolutely. And especially now, back then it was much slower. Now the rate of change is so quick. If you don't do that, you're dead in the water. If you don't adapt quickly, if you try and stick to what happened last year and work in this year's environment, you're going to be old hat very quickly. Back then, 50 years ago, things were a lot slower, but it was still a thing. One, because I'm insanely curious and I like to learn stuff like that. I'm not academic at all, but I like learning things. But I want to learn what I want to learn. So you show me how to do that, please. having that as a base to do things, I learned how to do lots of different things. Probably not as a massive expert in any of them, but with a broad range of skills. And the benefit of that is when I was ever looking for a new job, I had quite a wide field that I could apply into and use transferable skills, although I didn't call it that at the time because I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
But basically, I could get a job based on the fact that I knew how to do A and B in a place that was C. Yeah. So, and I've in my working life, I've had quite a few different jobs in vastly different industries.
Yes, we are looking forward to share with the people because all this how you've been in radio involved.
Yeah.
You are serial entrepreneur with all sorts of different
that's
businesses.
all towards the end of my life.
But all that you're going to take us through your journey will end up.
Do you want me to quickly? I'll have to do this quickly because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, no,
so I'll buzz through. When I left, when the paper went bust, I got a job working for a motor manufacturer. My job was making up hydraulic pipes and brake shoe linings and number plates in a motor factory.
Well, completely different.
And completely different.
Yeah.
And I was doing that, and it was okay. It was a little firm in Maidstone called Crows in Union Street, and I quite enjoyed the work, and there were a nice bunch of guys there. But it came to a head. The room that I worked on my own in a room with these machines, and everybody else worked in the shop. Yeah. And it was blooming freezing, and they wouldn't put the heating on. And during the winter, it was bitterly cold in there, and I thought, I can't stand this anymore. I don't need these kind of labouring jobs. I need an office job, right? So I quit, and at the time, there was a thing called the Youth Employment Office, yeah? So I went up to the Youth Employment Office, and I went, I'm looking for a job. And they went, OK, what kind of job do you want? And I went, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure what suits me. And they went, we've got a career test that will tell us that. I went, I'll do it. So they gave me this multi-choice test, okay? And it said things like, would you prefer cutting grass, building a wall, adding up a column of figures, or working with a disabled person? I'm thinking, I want a job indoors. Figures. And it had 20 questions, all of the same type. They went away and analysed it and came back and said, you would be perfect for an office job.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank goodness I've got some common sense here.
Yeah. And because that's the way it worked, they said, here's a card for a job. You go there today and have an interview. And they sent me to Kent County Council Supplies Department. And I arrived at Kent County Council Supplies Department and said, I've been sent by the job centre for an interview. I was interviewed by this bloke, didn't even know what I was applying for, apart from the fact it was an office job. And I got the job. And it turned out to be a stock auditor for the supplies department. So they had a massive warehouse of everything you could possibly imagine, which KCC supplied to schools, colleges, the police force, the fire brigade. They had everything from paper clips to uniforms. And what was happening is that lots of the stock would go missing. So they thought they had 25 cork fireman's helmets, but they could only find 12 and stuff like that. Yeah. So the staff that were picking and packing it were doing this. My job was to go around and count everything. Yeah. So I go around and I go, there should be 15 of those. I can only find 14. And then so we'd alter it to say, well, there was 14 this time. And there were just millions of things. So it was a Forth Bridge job. I just went round and round and round, counting all this stuff, recording it, and so on and so forth. I was then sent to the audio-visual department, which was in a different location, still part of supplies department. But over there, they repaired equipment like televisions and this newfangled device called a VCR. And we were, whoa, look at that. Wow. It records stuff. Wow. Yeah. And I had to do a complete audit of the equipment there because it was a repair depot. They had things like transistors and resistors and, power supplies and stuff like that, and loads of fiddly bits that I didn't understand. And I had to count little, transistors and stuff. So I did that. And outside of, and I quite enjoyed doing that. But of course, I was, 17, 18 years old, getting a bit restricted by living in a village in Kent and stuff like that. And I was in the pub one night with a mate, and we were both moaning about the lack of ladies and things like that. And we went, why don't we go to London? Yeah, that's a damn good idea. So that was on a Sunday night. Monday morning, I quit my job, and we both went to London.
On the search for ladies.
On the search for ladies, yeah. There is all kinds of motivations. I never found a lady. I did find a job in a flat.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
We slept rough for a couple of nights because we had no money as well. And then I just walked into an employment agency and said, I want a job. And they said, what have you been doing? And I said, well, I've been working for KCC and this, that, doing this. And they sent me to an interview at a company called Abbey Life, which was a life insurance company. Yeah, based next to St Paul's Cathedral. I went up there and I had an interview. I guess one of the things was I was pretty good at interviews, I guess. Yeah, because I always tended to get the jobs I interviewed for. Some would say it was bullshit.
Or someone didn't like the jobs and never applied for.
I think someone's got a slight skill of communication. I think that's what it is.
So I got a job working for Abbey Life in customer services. And my job was to service existing customers. So people that had already been scammed into getting a life insurance policy. And I say that genuinely because eventually that whole operation like that was declared illegal.
Wow.
Because they were selling these policies poorly. I mean, nowadays we're fairly used to the government coming along going, that's been sold badly. You need to compensate. Nobody had heard of that before. These were one of the first lot that was saying, you can't promise what you've promised because you can't deliver that. So it's mis-selling.
Because in those days it was like pay £10 a month.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're 30, you're going to be a millionaire.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas half the time they actually lost money.
Yeah.
And if they tried to surrender the policy, most of my job was about people that tried to surrender the policy because they couldn't afford it anymore.
Persuade them to stay on.
And I had to either persuade them to stay on or break the news to them that they owed us money. They thought they were going to get some money back, and I'd go, no, you owe us money. I got punched in the face at least 4 times.
Wow.
While I worked there. And most of my customers I dealt with over the phone, but the ones that turned up in the office were normally quite violent because they were upset. So I worked there for a couple of years, and it was okay. It was a decent enough place to work because there was hundreds of young kids, all the same age as me, and ladies, all working there, and it was all good fun for a little while. My mate and I had a bed sit in London. It was fun. And then Dave, my flatmate, he got a job doing shuttering, where you pour concrete into big buildings. And he got this job shuttering, and he got a contract working in Sweden. So he cleared off, and I couldn't afford the flat on my own. So I quit. I quit my job because I just couldn't afford to live in London anymore. I thought I'll go home, back and live with mum and dad. And I'm on the train going back to Maidstone, and an old schoolmate of mine got into the carriage as well. Hello, mate, what are you doing? Funnily enough, I said, I've just quit my job and I'm going home to live with mum and dad, and I'll be looking for another job. What are you up to? And he said, I'm working at Kent County Council in the computer department. I went, what? He went, the computer department, we've got a computer. Really? What's one of those then?
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And he went, yeah, we do the payroll and we do this and do the other stuff. Blimey. He said, we're recruiting at the moment. Are you? Yeah. He said, but you need experience. I don't even know what a computer is. He went, you still playing football? I went, yeah. He went, our works team I was a goalkeeper. Our works team need a goalkeeper. The manager is the manager of the football team as well. I'll have a word. So a few days later, Mel rings me up and he goes, I've got you an interview. So I go to this interview at the computer department, and the computer manager's gone, so who have you played for? I played for Gillingham, played for Maidstone, played for Kent Schools. You're in. Right. I got hired to work in computers based on my football skills.
Work experience. Amazing.
But if you ask me, that's the give you a chance to show what you know.
Yeah.
Well, as it happened, it turned out to be very serendipitous, because when I got there, the first thing they said to me is, what we do, at the moment, we do the payroll and a couple of other bits and pieces. We've got a huge project to computerise the supplies department. I went, I used to work there doing the auditing.
Yeah.
And they went, wow. So basically, I ended up working on a project to computerise what I'd already done before manually. So I knew it fairly well. Anyway, I was a trainee computer operator at KCC, working on an ICL 1904S, running George 3, the operating system. And I was standing in the computer room one day on the morning, because I work shifts again. One of my attributes is I'll work any time of day or night. And I was on the day shift, and a bunch of people came in from what was then called the post office, and now we would call it BT. And they've got all this equipment, and they assemble a rack and start putting stuff in this rack. So everybody else has ignored them. I wander over, I go, what's happening? And the bloke said, that's a modem, and that is. It's about this big. Is it? What's one of those then? He said, it's a modulator, demodulator. What's that do then? He said, it takes analog waves and it makes them into digital. Why does it do that? He says, well, then you can have a remote terminal that can send the punch, everything was punch cards then, that can send punch card stream over the telephone into the computer, so you don't have to be in the same room. Wow. And he says it uses a piece of software called Maximop. Right? Is it very fast? He went, it's 300 baud. Oh, what's a baud? He says bits per second. I went, blimey, that's blistering. So this GPO engineer has told me all of that. I'm going, yeah, fantastic.
And you just absorb it.
I just absorb it. About 6 weeks later, I was on the day shift again, and we're all stood in the computer room, and a door comes open, and the director of IT comes in with the head of Kent County Council and the mayor of Maidstone and some other dignitaries, and says, I'm showing people around. And there was a chap called Ron Thompson, who was the shift leader at the time. So Ron starts showing them, this is the core store, and this is a magnetic tape, and this is a disk drive this big that we can store nearly a megabyte of data on that, and it only takes 4 people to lift it. So he's showing them around, and he gets to this rack, and he's gone, I'm not sure what that is. I go, I know. So they go, oh, come and tell us. I go, that's a modem, that is. And they go, what's a modem? I said, it's a modulator, demodulator. And they go, what does that do? I said, it takes an analog wave and it makes it digital. And it does it at 300 baud. And they go, wow. I said, and if you use Maximop, the software, you can send jobs in from a remote. Wow, that's really state of the art. Yeah. So they all clear off. About an hour later, the operations manager comes in and went, I didn't know you were a networking guy. I went, yeah. He went, we just put an ad out for a network controller. We don't need that. You can do it. Yeah.
What?
So
I got a job as network controller.
Based again to your questions a few days ago.
And the thing about that was that it was really easy if you're not egoist and pretentious about it. Yeah. I didn't actually know anything about how to do it. So whenever the engineers were there, I asked them, I go, sorry to be a nuisance, how do I do this? And they go, oh, for God's sake, you go like that and push that. Thank you.
No ask, no get.
Yeah, exactly.
You just ask, learn, and then grow from there.
And that was the beginning of the internet, effectively.
Oh, no. It was long before the internet.
But like the sort of the principles of communication.
The principle of remote communication, that was the early days of what they called TP, which was teleprocessing. Yeah. But I'm still talking 1973.
Yeah.
So it's all mainframes and that. And then the pull of the ladies got to me again, and I'm going, I need to go back to London. I really do need to go back to London. So I went back to London, but this time on my own, because now I'm an experienced computer network controller.
Yeah, exactly.
You are.
Yeah. And I got a job working for a retail company at their head office in Bedford Square called Moss.
Okay.
Yep, the men's outfitters. And they were in the process of building a computer network to link all their stores so that they could do overnight stock replenishment. So again, it was a double whammy for me. I had networking experience and I had stock replenishment type experience as well. So the interview was a bit of a doddle because there weren't that many people about with any experience of those, and to have both was unusual. So I got the job there. And set up a network to their major stores. Not Moss Bros have stores in almost every town, but these were just their major department stores that were online. So London, Manchester, Leeds, Glasgow.
And those days, again, it was using the telephone line to communicate.
Yeah, but we had an old Honeywell mainframe, and it kept breaking down. Yeah, and the engineer came in every time that it broke down and fiddled around for ages and messed about. And eventually, I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, the trouble is," he said, "it's a really old machine, and it still had valves in it and stuff like that. And when they heat up, they pop out, and you need to reseat them." He said, "The easiest way to do that is you see the panel there. You should give it a whop with a rubber mallet." I ain't got a rubber mallet. He went, "Get yourself a rubber mallet." So I went down. The computer room was in a department store, and we had a tool department downstairs. So I went downstairs and nicked a rubber mallet. Yeah, and next time the computer broke, and it started working again.
Exactly.
Whoa! I'm an engineer.
IT advice: if something doesn't happen, just either
Just
restart,
bang it.
just bang it.
Just give it a knock.
Yeah, it worked a little while, but it didn't work for everything. It didn't solve any software problems at all.
Escape to luxury at Hempstead House Hotel and Spa, an elegant country house hotel in Bapchild, near Sittingbourne, Kent. Relax with indulgent spa treatments. Dine in style with exquisite cuisine. Perfect for getaways, weddings and events. Experience luxury in the heart of Kent. Book your stay today.
Be the first to discover Kent's best events all in one free app. What's On in Kent is a new and rapidly growing app where you can find days out information, places to eat, festivals, concerts, markets, and much more around you. Just with few clicks on your phone or computer, you can stay updated with real-time info and explore events across Kent. Don't even think twice. Just download. It's free.
So I worked there for a few years, and then I got bored and wanted to do something different. And I'd been working on this network, and I've been looking at different types of equipment and stuff. And in all my career, I try to predict new things that are happening and kind of find some way of getting on them.
Yeah, understand the trend, really.
Yeah. And at that time, I had experience on ICL mainframes and Honeywell mainframes, and both of them were going out of fashion because IBM had kicked in big time. And of course, they all had different operating systems and different ways of working. And I thought, I need experience on IBM. Otherwise, I'm going to get left behind here.
Because that is the future.
Because that is the future at the moment, is IBM mainframes. So I started applying for jobs from Computer Weekly, and I got an interview with a company in London called Dresser Industries, who are an American oil field supply company. In fact, they used to make petrol pumps, four-station petrol pumps.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pumps. Yeah, they used to have the label on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Dresser Wayne was a company that made them. But they did loads of things in the oil field and pipeline supply. So I applied for a job with them as European network controller, and I got the job. And then at that time is when remote networking really started to take off, and there was lots of stuff. A lot of people don't remember. There used to be a thing called telex, telex machines, that were a way of communicating. Everybody, big offices all had a telex machine, and you'd dial another telex machine and transmit a message.
So that's far before fax?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, faxes have been around a long time. Faxes have been around since the early 20th century. But again, it was all dialed this and dialed that. And what we started to do was build what we called a teletype network, where you could just go online and type to somebody else and make connections via a network. And we built a big, what was called a message switching network, where you could send messages and stuff like that. And I was one of the first people to use a satellite uplink for sending data between Europe and the US and things like that. And did a lot of work with Western Union, who owned the transponders on the satellite. And the Western Union, thank you, Danny Larkins, the Western Union engineers were really great blokes because, again, I go, how's that work then? And they sit there and tell me, and I go, I don't understand. And they go, here's a piece of paper, look, this is what happens, but you've got to watch the propagation today. I'm not growing anything. They went, no, not that kind of propagation. When it goes up so high, 45,000 miles, that it loses
signal strength.
That's called propagation. And this is how you work out the propagation. And the problem is, if you have too many jumps in it, the signal will eventually fade away. So you mustn't do that. So they taught me loads of stuff about building big networks. And we built a big European network, covered right across Europe, with lease lines and things like that. And multiplexers, time division multiplexers, and all those kind of stuff I was building then. And then I got headhunted by a company called Combustion Engineering, and because they wanted to build the same as Dresser got, and I built the one at Dresser. So I got headhunted to work for them. Combustion Engineering, they designed petrochemical plants, refineries, and nuclear power stations, amongst other things. So again, I went there and I built a huge network for them, using both IBM mainframes and Cray supercomputers. The nuclear power stations were designed using Cray supercomputers because they're big, complex things. We actually designed and built 3 Mile Island for Westinghouse.
I mean, Westinghouse is huge.
So Combustion Engineering, which is now part of Caterpillar. I think. We keep changing ownership. Anyway, I worked there for a few years, and the problem with working in that industry, there weren't many nuclear power stations being built. Most of the things they were building was oil and petrochemical refineries. And the problem with that industry is, when the oil companies hit a gusher, they spend loads of money and design those things. And when it dried up, all the work dried up. So you had this, the bosses were coming on going, it's going to be a bad year, we've got to fire half your staff, you've got to do this. I just said, I want something that's more reliable. And I just started to think about what industry is going to rely most on technology. Banking. That's what I need. But by this time, I was married to a lady that was a recruitment consultant that specialised in IT. So I went out and I said, Chris, I want to change my job. I want to work for a bank. Well, you've never worked for a bank. I know, but I've built networks. Yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do. Anyway, bless her. She got me a job at Citibank. And I started at Citibank as a technical support consultant and started working on building networks for them. That was 1979, 1980. And I was at Citibank a long time. It was a bonkers time. Citibank were really, really innovative. Really, considering there's still not only was there no internet, there were no PCs when I first started there. We had mainframes, we built a big network. We built a thing called the GTN, which is General Transaction Network. And we had a software system called Cosmos. And the management, the senior management of the bank was really, really switched on about technology. And they saw that as the future of banking. So they started a project to do electronic banking before PCs existed and before the internet existed. And I didn't, this wasn't my project. I just played a very minor part in it. There was a massive project team that did it globally. But my bit was the UK. We built a global network ourselves. So we actually built an internet effectively, although it was a closed thing. We also installed email, and we were one of the first organisations in the world to have an email system. Internal, so it's corporate email, but Citibank employs 75,000 people then.
But they're using satellite then for communication?
Yeah, we were using all kinds of stuff. In South America, we built a thing called the GTN, which is Global Transaction Network, and it was nodes everywhere. We had nodes in like 93 countries around the world. In South America, there was no telecoms infrastructure. So we kind of leapfrogged the technology by using a combination of satellite links and microwave, what would eventually become mobile signals. Yeah,
It's a bit like when you used to see the towers, because there used to be towers all over the country with little dishes pointing in different directions.
Yeah, exactly that.
And that was transporting the data.
Exactly that.
Yep.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and also in Libya, for instance, we built a network modulating the electrical power supply lines, which was okay as long as you remembered it was electricity in there and you didn't just stick your screwdriver in it when it went down. So tons and tons of innovative stuff going on there. It was really clever. And then something really bizarre happened there, really, because I was quite happy being a network engineer. And then my boss got this crazy idea that I should run everything. So at age like 25, they made me VP of technology, vice president of technology, and I ended up with 400 people working for me. And
Wow. So 11 years ago, you left school and you were a grease monkey in a paper mill.
Yeah.
And 11 years later, you are VP,
The world's biggest bank.
That's pretty good progress.
None of it was planned.
No.
It was all one step after another.
But each part of that journey, you're absorbing more and more information.
Yeah.
You're asking people questions. You're using your communication skills to learn as quickly as you can. Use your practical skills to implement it.
Yeah.
Nothing too much on theory. All done in paper, simple blocks.
Absolutely.
And make it easy.
And the big lesson I learned from that was that you don't have to know everything to do something. What you have to do is know someone that does know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And to us.
Yeah. And the engineers that put all this stuff in, the engineers that make and build it, they'll talk to you. If you ask them a question, but most people in those, they try to fight with them all the time. Yeah. Whereas I'd ring them up and I'd go, your modems, can they do this? They go, don't be silly. I go, well, how would I do that then? You don't want a modem. What you want is a time division multiplexer. Do I? Yeah. Do you sell them? Yeah. Can you show me one? Yeah. And they show you how it works, you know? It's like, this is going to be technically stupid and no one will understand this. When we built the electronic banking network, our customer, bearing in mind we weren't doing retail banking, we were doing commercial banking. So our customers were people like Levi Strauss, IBM, Ford Motor Company, Phillips Petroleum. They were all people like that.
All the big brands.
Yeah, they were all big corporates that had their own treasury departments. And what we would do is we would put a terminal in their office attached to our mainframes so that they could do their own money transfers and bond purchases and all the stuff that you would do with a bank. But we were using IBM mainframes. And in those days, IBM had a networking configuration called SNA, Systems Network Architecture, which was a proprietary network, and fairly complicated. And there was no way that you could get a remote terminal that wasn't an IBM terminal to actually interact with the computer. You could buy an IBM terminal, but 3270 terminals, which is what they used, were like $4,000 each, and we're going, none of our customers are going to do that, So we had to find a way of getting a really cheap terminal that could emulate the 3270. And we came across a bloke called Jeff Brown, God bless his cotton socks, and really, really smart. We were based in Lewisham, and Jeff was based in Blackheath, just round the corner. And I can't even remember where we met him, but we met him somewhere. And he went, I could build an emulator that will take a dumb terminal and turn it into a 3270 terminal. Can you? Yeah. And he did. And he built a thing called a Brown's box, which was this box of electronics and a bit of software. And it worked. We could take a 50 quid DEC VT100 asynchronous terminal and make it into a fully fledged synchronous terminal. And we could do that by having the boxes at our data center. And then so if you take Phillips Petroleum, they would have a dial-up modem and a dumb terminal. They would dial into our box, which would then make it a 3270 terminal, and they could make payments and do all the things they did. So it was, by today's standards, very rudimentary, but then massively groundbreaking electronic banking for the first time. All these people could do it. So customers flooded to us because they could manage their own accounts.
And they could then buy this box.
Well, they didn't even have to buy it. We provided that.
Oh, really?
Because it was all based in our data center.
Wow.
All they did was pay us a fee to use a dumb terminal and a dial-up modem. Which was peanuts. And some of them had their own terminals anyway, because they all big companies. And we'd attach them. And then the IBM PC came out in about 81, 82. And I was when they first launched it in America, it wasn't available anywhere else. I was dispatched to America to buy some and bring them back, which I did, and we changed the power supplies so they worked here. And we messed about with some IBM PCs, got them to work on the network. And of course, as time evolved then, everybody decided to go the PC route, because then you had a machine that did lots of other stuff that you could do your banking, but you could have your own reconciliation on your own computer. So I
mean, in those days as well, that was around the same time, sort of 1982, 83, when the BBC Micro came out. So that was the first time a computer went into a school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
the Acorn.
And then ZX81, was it? The little spectrum thing?
Yeah, so home computer side, there was a Tandy TRS-60 and then a Commodore. So there were people playing with microcomputers at home. There were people walking into the bank going, we had a thing called City Mail, which was a global electronic mail system. They go, can you connect this to City Mail? What is it? It's a ZX81. Oh, get out of here. But we'd try. We played around with all kinds of kit, just trying to attach anything to anything, really. For the most part, we got away with it. It was a bit clunky, but we started attaching stuff to the network. And then, it just grew and grew from there. And Citibank became the world's biggest bank, the world's richest bank. We were just pulling customers in from everywhere. And I'd been there 7 or 8 years, I think. I really love working there. It's one of the greatest places I worked at Citibank. It was, we'd be working there till midnight without thinking about it. Just absorbed in what you were doing and doing loads of crazy stuff and experimenting with things and doing all kinds of stuff and working with some really talented people there, just doing stuff, doing crazy stuff. Like the email system was the funniest thing ever. There's a guy called Pete Vickery, and Pete, he came into my office one day and he said, I've come across a piece of software called Comet, and it's email software. I went, what the hell's that? He said, it's like a messaging system, but it's better than that. I went, okay, why are you telling me? He said, I want to run it here, but it runs on a DEC PDP mini computer. I said, we've got one of those in a cupboard somewhere. We used to run DECs as well as IBM machines. I said, I've got one, all broken in parts. So I went to the cupboard and I started pulling all the bits out. And it was all just in bits. So we reassembled this PDP 1170 and got it up and running and loaded the software on it. And Pete and I and a couple of other people just started sending emails to each other. And people would walk into my office and they go, what's that? And I go, it's an email. And I go, oh, can I have one? Yeah, all right. So we started adding people to the network. And then the senior management found out about it. And they went, what are you doing? Who authorised that? And they went, he did, pointing at me.
So that really was the foundation of proper email.
Yeah. And it was a proper email system, And
do you realise that we're sitting with the guy who was starting email?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't.
But obviously he implemented and he was playing a major role.
No.
I love what you said for the last few minutes. In my office. In my office. You remember that guy that wanted his office? Honestly,
exactly.
It's
I didn't invent the internet. I didn't invent email. I didn't invent anything. The software for email already existed with a company called Comet, and there were other people playing around with it. At that time, I think CompuServe had also started up.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were lots of people experimenting with messaging systems at that time of different types. There was also bulletin boards that started to come out and things like that. So it was something that was bubbling around. Yeah. What we did was applied it internally in what would now be called a skunk works. Yeah. We just did it
Like a special
unauthorised.
project.
We put it up for a laugh. And people started liking it. The senior management found out and said, well, I want one. And then it went mainstream. Pete, who was the guy that introduced it, they made him a VP, and they put him in charge. He was global VP of email, and we just started rolling it out to people. And we then had a budget for buying 5 more machines to run all this, and eventually it became bank standard. So everybody in the bank globally had to have we called it City Mail, had to have a City Mail email address.
So this was 1982, 83.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
So everybody had City Mail. It was only internal. You couldn't email anybody outside of the organisation, but you could communicate with anybody.
Make your bank that's innovative and that's looking forward.
We had some funnies, like the very first person that ever did a reply all to all 75,000 people, including the chairman of the bank, was a guy in Australia called Roger Davis, who was bad-mouthing the chairman of the bank in an email, and in a reply all email that went to 75,000 people. That caused some laughs and quite a few sackings. And PCs came along, and we spent a lot of time integrating PCs into the bank, and then local area networks, Ethernet and token ring networks, and messing about doing stuff like that. And then I got a boss who was a complete, can I use the word? No, I won't use the word. He wasn't very nice.
It was difficult.
But the funny thing was, when he first, I was used to having different bosses. There was loads of changes in Citibank all the time. They were forever shuffling the deck chairs and moving things about. I got an okay because I was head of technical support and internet banking, and because I knew the background to all the technology, people fairly much left me alone to get on with things. Alan took over, and he was, at first I was really taken with him, like a lot of people were, because he introduced me to the concept of people management. And up until then, having been made a VP, it was quite a shock, because with technology, if you really came stuck and you really didn't know where to go, you could read the manual. Reading the manual was for wimps, but eventually you could read the manual and it would tell you what to do. When you had people, there was no people manual.
No.
When Alan took over, he started introducing me to the concept of people management, and people psychology, except he was a corporate snake, basically, out for his own ends. And eventually we fell out. And I was basically sent to Coventry. I went on holiday, and when I came back, my office had gone, and my PA had gone, Wow. I went, I moved my office, and he went, "You're in the basement now." So I go down to the basement. I go, I've got no PC on my desk. Well, there's no signal down here, so you can't have a PC and you can't have email or anything. Just sat there, did nothing for about 6 months. And then, so I thought, well, there's no point in hanging around doing this. So I started applying for other jobs, and it was really bizarre. I was offered a job. I'll come back to that in a minute. And having been offered the job and accepted it, HR at Citibank then came to me and they go, "We're going to have to let you go because you're not doing anything." I go, "Oh, that's a shame. You're making me redundant." And they went, "Yeah, we'll pay you off with a year's salary." I went, "Oh, perfect. What a shame." Okay.
He already had his new job.
And I started at Goldman Sachs the next Monday. And I went to work for Goldman Sachs, the investment bank. And that was a real eye-opener in terms of differences. Having worked for a commercial bank before and now working for an investment bank, they're completely different animals. And then Goldman Sachs was tiny. There were only 200 staff in total in London.
Wow.
And it was a partnership, and totally a partnership. And Bob Freeman, who was the guy that employed me, he was a senior partner. and he employed me in London to build a data center. Okay. This was 1987. And in 1987, the then Conservative government under Margaret Thatcher deregulated the banking industry. Up until then, it had been separated. You could be a stockbroker, a stock jobber, or a merchant bank, but you couldn't do all three. Yeah, which meant that customers were paying triple fees for everything. So they deregulated the stock market so that you could do all three of those. Yeah, you couldn't do commercial banking and investment banking, but you could do all the stock market. But what most and it was a project called Big Bang. Yeah, what most people don't understand is that deregulation was only a minor part of what happened. What really happened was share trading, equities trading, in fact, all trading, commodities, everything went electronic. Up until then, everything was done face-to-face on the floor of the exchange in what was called open outcry. An open outcry is when you go, I want 2 IBM, and somebody would go, give you one for 17. And, you know, it was just, it was like tic-tac and everybody screaming and shouting. And Big Bang also incorporated the digitisation of the stock market. Almost everybody concentrated on the deregulation bit and not on the electronic bit. And what the partners of Goldman said to me was, we're not interested in any of that. We can do that longer term. What we want is to get the electronic trading working. So my job was to build a data center, a bond trading system, an FX trade, foreign exchange trading system, and a dealing desk. Yeah. So that's what we did. And ourselves, Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, First Boston, and I think can't remember, there was one other bank that went live on the first day of electronic trading. And the rest of them hadn't even started. They were all busy buying up stockbrokers and stock jobbers and trying to integrate legacy systems. We didn't have any of that drawback. We hit the ground running. Goldman just went bananas from there.
Because then you were able to be so much more efficient and effective.
Yeah.
And trade so quickly.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
everyone else was messing about with paper bits and you were doing...
We were doing electronic trading, yeah. Everybody came off the floor and worked in the trading room. We had hoot and holler systems, so they opened telephone lines so they could communicate with all other banks everywhere, not just in London, but New York, Hong Kong, Zurich, wherever they wanted to trade. They trade 24 hours then. Yeah. Before, you were restricted to going to the stock market there, and if you had traders in Japan, they would go to the Nikkei Tokyo Stock Exchange and trade there. Now, our London traders could trade in Japan. Yeah, they just pick up the phone at 8 o'clock in the evening. They go, I want to buy Honda, or I want to sell Toyota, or whatever. So electronic trading transformed financial services. Whereas everybody else was jockeying around buying stock jobbers and stockbrokers and trying to integrate them, and it just all falling apart. And of course, the clever, this is nothing to do with me. I mean, this is the clever blokes at Goldman. They worked out that once they got electronic trading working, they could then step in and buy up whoever they wanted because they were all falling about all over the place. As it was, Goldman didn't buy many people. They actually just expanded into it themselves.
Yeah, they just grew it themselves naturally.
So I did that at Goldman Sachs. I was Senior Vice President of Infrastructure Technology for Goldman Sachs, and had a bit of a whale of a time. One of the beauties of working for a partnership versus a big corporate, if I wanted to do anything officially in Citibank, you established the project, you did, terms of reference, scope the project, get authorization, and all those kind of things. At Goldman, the partners, my boss owned the business. Along with 30 other people, they owned the business. I go into his office, he said, I want a data center. I said, okay, what kind of data center do you want? And he went, oh, you're a techie. He said, I just want something to run a bond management system. I said, well, we'll need a couple of mainframes. Well, go on then, get on with it. And that was it. I went and bought two £2 million mainframes on the back of Bob telling me to go and buy a mainframe. Yeah, there was no... Yeah, just buy it.
boards
Yeah.
at all,
And if I want
reports
anything,
and
I go and I go, Bob, I need to buy this. It will cost $1 million. Yeah, fine.
It just happened.
Yeah, and it just happened, and it happened really quickly, and did stuff, which was it just made working there such a dream because you didn't have to mess about with project plans and all the rest of it, and that kind of stuff. I'm not good at anyway. I've always worked by the seat of my pants. So we built that environment at Goldman and had a really great time doing it. And then the phone started ringing because other banks needed to do this.
Yeah, and they want to
and they're going, there's only 4 people in London that have ever done this. Yeah,
you were one of them.
And I was one of them. So they ring me and go, do you want to work for us? Do you want to work for us? And then, how much time we got?
Carry on,
that's fine. I'm going to have to go soon. But we had a really funny thing happen, and it brought home to me how I was kind of getting a bit upset with the whole thing. One Sunday night, early hours of Monday morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call, which wasn't unusual. We got a problem at work, my night shift manager. We got a problem here, big problem. John D. Donkersloot was now my partner in charge. John D. Donkersloot III, 6'9" Texan cowboy. Wow. He's in screaming, oh, God. So I get in the car, drive to work, get in. And the first thing I notice is complete silence. And there's never complete silence in the data centre. There's always a hum of machinery. There's complete silence. There's a bloke sat on the floor crying. I don't know who he is or why he's crying, but he's crying. Yeah. And I'm going, what's going on? And they said, this bloke, who is a a Mercury engineer, turned up to look at a line problem and hit the power down button. How do you do that? We used to wear tokens on our belts that let you through electronic doors, if you were authorised. So my night shift manager had called this engineer to look at a line that had gone down. He'd walked into the data centre and the door had opened. He'd walked through and the door had closed. The engineer, looking to walk behind him, saw a button on the wall, assumed it was a door opener and hit it. And it was actually the emergency power off button. Right? So he shut everything down. Right? Okay, it happens. Start it up again. That's the problem. It won't come up. And there were people running around shouting and screaming, and Donkersloot was there screaming his head off. And sorry about this, but the reason the guy was crying is he'd threatened him with a rusty razor blade to actually cut off his wedding tackle and post them to him. And so there was a lot of shouting and screaming. And I walked in and he went, about time you got here. And I'm, okay. He went, get onto IBM, get a new mainframe. I'll tell you what, why don't you all just sod off, the lot of you, leave me alone, I'll try and sort out what's going on. So I thought, what could he have done? Yeah. And John, who was my night shift manager, John Warman, I said, have you checked everything? I checked the fuses, I checked everything. I did. We can't get the power to come back. It's only hit the power, it's only powered it down. I mean, really?
Yeah.
So I'm walking around, and I'm looking at things. I don't understand. I open the cabinet, and it's 3-phase power. All of it. Well, the 3-phase power had tripped. I go, and it all goes, and comes up. Yeah. So I walk out, and they're all stood there looking at me. How did you do that? I turned the trip switch on. Right. So Donkersloot said, I want to see you in my office at 8 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock in the morning now. You go, I want to see you in my office at 8 o'clock. Okay. So I go home, freshen up, put a clean suit on, come back to work, walk into his office. He didn't even look up. He handed me a cheque and he went, that's for last night. It was £20,000 bonus. I went, hello? And I went, what? I went, are you talking to me or what? And he went, I'm giving you a bonus. No, you're not even looking at me, John. And he went, that's a bonus. I just tore the cheque up. I said, you can stick that where the sun don't shine. And I quit. And I walked out. My wife went absolutely banging. She went absolutely apeshit.
Honestly, yeah.
I said, I'm not putting up with that. I'm just not putting up with that. I don't need to put up with that. It's just nonsense.
What was that they didn't like? The way how he treat the people?
Yeah.
Or the way that you were called?
It was there was a group of senior people there that thought because they paid you lots of money, which they did, that they could get you to do. You know, I was working like 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and on call the rest of the time. Okay, you know, I was in my 30s by then, my early 30s, so I was still a fairly young man, but even so, you know, I had a young family and stuff like that, and it would have been nice to see occasionally. So I was getting to the point of a bit of burnout anyway. But so many people in that environment burn out in their 30s in any case. And I was kind of aware of that in the back of my mind. And when they started treating me, you know, like dismissing everything and just being silly about it, I don't need this. I've got loads of people ringing me, offering me jobs. Why do I need this? So I quit, and I thought, I don't need to work for anybody else. I could work for myself.
And that was the start.
And that's where my very first business was as a consultant building trading desks. And I got a job at Morgan Grenfell Merchant Bank. And I ended up there. I was there a few years as a consultant. I ended up as managing director. And I was dragging them, kicking and screaming, from the late 17th century into the early 19th century. They were still using quills and stuff like that, and I'm trying to introduce
the latest technology.
Technology and trading desks and Reuters screens and Bluebird screens and stuff like that. They were open to doing it, but they were just such an old fuddy-duddy British merchant bank that it was all, well, let's have a board meeting. And you get to the board meeting, and 3 of the directors were lords, and stuff like that. And they go, before we start, let's have the drinks trolley. So a little old lady would come around with a drinks trolley, and they'd all have a snifter. And you go, can we get started with this? You know, can we get on with this? Can we do this? And the idea was that we were preparing the bank for sale by modernising it. So eventually I became interim managing director because I didn't actually work for the bank. I worked for myself. And we had 40 consultants working there that worked for myself and my wife. Well, because we set it up as a joint company. So the company, she did recruitment and I ran the consulting side. And we had like all these consultants working there as well, building stuff and doing stuff. And the bank, Morgan Grenfell, was sold to Bankers Trust. No, Deutsche Bank for 1.2 billion or whatever it was. I didn't see any of it. And I worked there. And when I finished there, I didn't want to work in technology anymore. I'd done it. I was teched out. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was bored with it. By then, I'd spent a lot of time trying to understand people and people motivations and stuff like that. And then by pure serendipity again, I fell into a completely different world of work. An old mate of mine from Citibank set up a business. IBM in the late 70s, early 80s, had come up with a whole scheme for managing data centers, with change management, problem management, technical management, and what they termed a help desk. Before that, if you had a technical problem, you just had to find someone that worked in IT and ask them for help. So they formalised the whole process of how you manage the data centre environment. And Howard had been the guy that project managed that at Citibank. And when he left Citibank, he came up with the idea of having a member-based organisation that represented people that ran help desks and change and problem management. And I invested a bit of money in his startup business. And he staged a conference on help desk change and problem management in Bristol and sold tickets. And he sold 400 tickets to an event with a lineup of speakers. And because I'd invested in the business, he invited me to the conference. So I went along. I sat there with all these IT managers from around Europe, and there was a whole host of speakers. And just before lunch, Howard came to me. He went, "You wouldn't do me a favour, would you?" I went, "What's that?" He went, "Our next speaker is stuck at the airport. Would you just go on and speak?" I'd never done anything like that. "No, I won't." And he went, well, it's your money you're going to lose. Really? And he went, yeah, just go up there and just stall them for a while. I said, well, what's the guy talking about? And he said, Rack F. I went, what is that even? He said, it's a security software. I've never heard of it. I'm not going to do a talk about Rack. I don't know anything about it. And he went, well, think of something. He's on his way from the airport. Oh, Christ. So I go out on the stage and I went, I'm really sorry. Our next speaker, Dr. Wolfgang, whatever his name was, is a little bit delayed. He's on his way, but he won't be here soon. So just for a few minutes, I thought we kind of kicked some ideas around. I just want to ask you as an audience, you're all IT managers, IT directors. What's the single biggest issue you face? Is it technology problems or is it people person? Knowing full well what the answer would be, it would be people problems, yeah? Because back then, still a bit today, most people recognise that techies aren't the greatest people in the world, yeah? And it was starting to cause a lot of aggravation in companies that they couldn't get rational support for things because now everybody relied on computers. Yeah? So we started kicking around things about people and stuff like that. And just, I remembered some stuff from books I read and we just chatted around it and all that. And eventually I see Howard going, at last he's arrived. And I said, I think Walker, and he's going, no. I don't know what's going on. I'm going off the stage. Howard's going to come on and tell you what's going to happen next. So I get off the stage, and as we pass on, you ever do that to me again, I'll bloody kill you. Yeah. So I got off the stage. Howard introduced the speaker, and then he came back and he went, really sorry about that, mate. He said, I didn't tell you, he was stuck at the airport, but it was Frankfurt Airport he was stuck at, not Bristol. He didn't turn up. You bastard. He said, you know, you've been talking for 3 hours.
No.
I went, what? He went, you saved my life. I went, yeah, well, don't you ever do that to me again. So I'm stood there, and this bloke came up to me, and he said, I really enjoyed that. Oh, thank you. He said, is that something you do regularly? I went, oh, yeah.
Public speaking, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He went, would you come and do it for our organisation? I went, well, probably. What do you want me to do? He said, I want you to do exactly what you just did then for my organisation. Okay. He said, what do you charge? The usual. And he went, well, I need you to come and speak for 2 hours, an internal event, and I'm prepared to pay you £1,000. Would you do it? I went, yep. Sorry, who are you? He said, oh, my name's Eddie Nixon. I'm the chairman of IBM UK. And I'd like you to come and speak to all of our UK staff about people motivation.
Wow. No.
So that was the first paid gig I ever got. And 15 years later, I was still doing it. Not at IBM, but all over the place, all over the world.
Yeah, speaking all over the world,
Yeah. So I became a motivational speaker.
Incredible.
And I started off doing mostly with IT-based stuff because that was my background. But then it kind of developed. And as a sideline, I became a management consultant as well. And I did two things. I did leadership training and management consultancy, as well as public speaking. And I did that for a long, long time.
And you keep doing that now? Or
I don't get paid to do it anymore. I do still do quite a bit of public speaking, but it tends to be local stuff.
Okay.
And comparing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're hosting so many events, Paul, aren't you? So leading, obviously, and the Bunker Radio is a
What
is
about
a
the
great venture
radio?
sharing
Have
story.
you got time to tell us a bit
Sorry?
about the radio?
Yep.
How this started?
How did the radio start?
Yeah.
I got a phone call one weekend from the BBC who said, would you appear on a radio show as a guest on Monday? I've never been on the radio before and had nothing to do with radio. I went, yeah. Talking about what? And they went, business. Oh, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And they said, come along. It's early start because it's early morning. So I arrived at the studio and we were about to go live. And we went live. And Claire, who was interviewing me, said, right, what did you think of The Apprentice last night? I don't know, I've never watched it. And she said, that's what we're talking about today, The Apprentice. I thought we were talking about business. And she went, well, it is. I went, don't be stupid. The Apprentice is a reality TV show. If I walked into my office and said, you're fired, I'd be in a tribunal sooner than my feet could hit the ground. It bears no relationship. She said, yeah, but it is. I mean, no. And I got really angry with her. I mean, The Apprentice has no bearing whatsoever on running a small business. Let me tell you that. They are remotely different. You know, they are chalk and cheese, remotely different. Anyway, I got upset with her and I went, trouble with you Guardian reading BBC types, you're all bloody lefties that don't understand businesses.
This is a live
radio. Yeah. And you don't understand business. And I went, there's 5.6 million small businesses in this country, and if you listen to the BBC you wouldn't know about any of them, because all you ever care about are big corporates that rip people off. You don't care about the small mum and pop businesses and all the small businesses. And I just said, you ought to have a programme on this station that represented small businesses. So Claire went, well, there you go. Yeah, well, that was Paul Andrews being controversial. No, I wasn't.
Being a realist.
Yeah. And she said, if you think there's scope for a small business programme, maybe you let me know. So when I came off air, by then I was running my LinkedIn group called Kent. So I just posted her email address on there and said, why don't you email her and tell her if you fancy a thing. So about 3 weeks later, she rang me up. She went, take my email address or your LinkedIn page. We've had 4,000 emails. And I went, there you go then. When's the programme start? No, we're not doing a programme. There's no demand. You have 4,000 emails. What are we talking about? So I walked around chuntering about this for ages and telling anybody that would listen, and telling anybody that wouldn't listen. And it's stupid people at the BBC. I've given them a whole thing and now they won't do it. Yeah. So somebody said to me, well, you're supposed to be an entrepreneur. Why don't you do it? Well, I don't know anything about radio. And they went, well, you should do it. It's one of those, it's like a red rag to a bull. So I started trying to investigate radio stations, the small ones, big ones in Kent. And at the time, I owned jobs in Kent, and we had done a lot of advertising with what was then Invicta Radio. And Neil Webster, who was the managing director of Invicta, I knew really well because we spent a lot of money advertising him. So I rang him up. I thought, Neil, can I come and talk to you? Yes. He's thinking I'm going to buy some more advertising. So I go over and I go, I want you to do a radio show about small businesses. And he's gone, no, talk radio does not work in the UK. Bearing in mind this was 18 years ago. Yeah. He said, and I said, but I've lived and worked in the US and they have wall-to-wall talk radio. And he said, I've worked on radio stations in the US that were talk. In the US, talk radio's big, not here. Right? Make it here? No, it's not something we want to do. Okay, I understand. So I contacted loads of radio stations. No one was remotely interested. And then I came across a tiny, tiny radio station on Romney Marsh called Romney Marsh FM. They were based in a potato factory in the middle of Romney Marsh. And I rang them up and I said, I've got an idea for a show. And the guy that ran it went, nah, not interested. And I went, if I paid you to put it on, would you do it? Come and see me. So I went down to see him and I said, if I paid you to do a show, I'll get the guests for you and you do it. And he said, well, I'm not going to do the interviewing. You're going to have to do the interviewing. Oh, really? Yeah. I said, I don't know anything about this stuff. He said, I'll punch the buttons. You just do the interviewing. Went, okay. And we struck a deal. Yeah. I went and did a show. I wasn't very happy with it. It was a bit dull. Yeah. And then I think I did 3 before I found Jules, who I met via Twitter. And she'd been ex-BBC. And we just got on like a house on fire. And I said, would you like to co-host a radio show with me? There's no money in it. We're doing it just for fun. So she went, yeah, I'll do it. So we started doing it, and that kind of transformed the show. But 4 shows in, Dave stopped turning up to do the buttons. So I'm going, how'd you do this? How do I go live? And the other engineers go, so I said to one of them, you're going to have to show me how to do this because, I can't rely on him. And anyway, they showed me how to work the buttons, and I started working the buttons myself. And then about 6 or 7 months in, I said to him one day, how many listeners we got? And he went, well, none really. Why am I wasting my time doing this thing? So I'm thinking to myself, it was fun for a few months, but it's a waste of time, so I won't do it. So I walked out to the car fully thinking about shutting it down and doing something else. And the sound engineer followed me out. And I got in the car and he tapped on my window and I wound it down. He went, he's lying. He said, you get more listeners to your show than the rest of the station put together. Well, why did he tell me that then? Well, he's scared you'll stop paying him. So I carried on doing it. and we moved studio a couple of times. And then I just thought, I've got enough experience of what I'm doing now, and I don't what they're doing. So I set up my own radio station.
And that's the Bunker Radio.
Well, it was called Channel Radio, and I ran Channel Radio for 12 years. I sold the Bunker was a show on Channel Radio.
Okay.
Yep. I sold Channel Radio 2 years ago. Moved the studio to Tenston, and we do 4 live shows in association with a radio station called Syncport Radio, and the internet.
So that's every Tuesday, 1 to 3?
Tuesday, 1 till 3. Yeah, every Tuesday. Or you can listen again on the catch-up. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've done 900 shows in total. Something like 3,000 guests.
And it's all about small businesses, isn't it?
And it's primarily talking about small businesses and issues that small businesses face. Startups, scaling up, exiting, all the stuff around accounting, insurance, and these days they talk a lot about cybersecurity and everything that a small business needs to know. And then we talk to specialist businesses that are interested about things that they do.
And just briefly, honestly, with you, we can talk for the weekend probably, just briefly about the place where we are now. It's a co-working space. You've got 3
of them, yeah. Fruitworks, which is the first, that's 14 years old. Fruitworks was the first co-working space in the UK outside of London. We've been there 14 years in Canterbury. We have 120 members, a big event space and meeting rooms and coffee shop, which is open to the public and stuff like that. We have a trading post at Tenton, which is where the podcast studio is and the radio studio, and I rent the podcast studio out, and that's really popular at the moment. It's an audio podcast studio rather than video. That's really popular. And then Island Works, which is where we are here in the Dockyard Church at Sheerness.
It looks beautiful, this
which
place.
is a fantastic, it's a lovely place, isn't it? We've got a really nice vibe.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We've got a public coffee shop here, so you can come in and have coffee, toasty.
Actually, I'm quite pleased to see that today, this morning, it was quite busy, people coming. Obviously, it's getting popular in the area.
We have co-working here, and we also have event space and meeting rooms.
That's awesome. So at the moment, we haven't said that briefly, but when we've been in the radio, I was really surprised when you said about jobs in Kent.
Yep.
How that idea come up back in the time to create?
When my ex-wife and I were in business together, she was and still is a recruitment consultant, and I was doing management. On the recruitment side of the business, they advertise their vacancies either in Computer Weekly or in the Sunday Times or the Sunday Telegraph. It was eye-wateringly expensive. We had a contractor, freelance contractor that worked for us. So we were a contract agency. We would put people out. We had a guy called Robbie Cowling that worked for us, who invented the world's very first online recruitment portal, called JobServe, which is still going today, where they advertise jobs for IT people. And I went, that's a blooming good idea. A lot of other people then also twigged, and there were a lot of companies starting things like Monster, which was one of the first, and Hot Jobs and people like that started developing online job portals. And I looked at the market and I thought, well, that's okay. If you're doing a niche like Robbie does with JobServe, where it's just IT jobs, you can advertise IT jobs anywhere because people are fluid. They will move, If you're just advertising jobs in general, a bookkeeper, a secretary's job, a bricklayer, people want to work locally, And there was a company called Stepstone that put $15 million into building a job portal, a general purpose job portal. But when you went in, I want a job as a bookkeeper, it would give you a job in Melbourne or a job in San Francisco.
That's the way I want to be.
I live in Maidstone. It's a long commute for a 20 grand a year job. So I just thought there's got to be a niche for a local job site. So I started jobs in Kent. I found a lad called Gavin Brown who had just left university. He'd studied astrophysics at university, but he'd been playing about with websites. I can't even remember how I found Gavin. But I said to him, do you want a job? And he went, what does recruitment agency want to do with astrophysics? I went, well, not a lot, but I've seen you've been playing with websites and I'd like a website, please.
Yeah.
So he came to work for us and did a website for Church International, which was Chris's recruitment company. And then I said, I've got this idea for Jobs in Kent. Could you do a website for it? So he built the first Jobs in Kent website. He's now the Chief Technology Officer at Nominet, who are the people that run the internet, basically. Yeah. But he designed our first Jobs in Kent website.
So you had it for a little bit.
Yeah, that was in, and he designed it in 98 and we went live in 99. Yeah.
So Paul, before we finish, what piece of advice would you give to anyone who wanted to start a business? Because you've started many businesses. What do you think is the most important piece of advice you could give to anybody that you would share?
You've got to get your numbers right first. Yeah. So many people start businesses based on what they enjoy doing, which is lovely. But if the numbers don't stack up, you haven't got a business. So basically your numbers have to stack up first. Yeah. What's it going to cost you to run this business? What are you going to sell your product or service at? And will you make a profit out of it? And how robust is that going to be? You know, so what's the competition? So do some research before you do it. I've had people I had one guy that had invented a non-movable dog bowl. It was a dog bowl that the dog could get into all the corners of the bowl to eat, and it didn't shuffle around the kitchen. And he mortgaged his house and all kinds of stuff to raise money to develop this thing. And he came to me and said, I've developed this prototype. I need to get it out. What do I do next? And I went, I'm sorry to tell you this, but what you need to do next is do something completely different. And he went, why? I went, because if you bother to Google it, you can buy those things from Amazon for 10 quid each. And there's thousands of different suppliers. And he'd spent 8 years developing it and he'd never looked at the market.
Never seen what was available.
And never seen what was available. I suspect he did when he first started, but he never did it again. And other people had
doing it all the time, really.
got it and got it out in front of him. So he was never going to compete in that marketplace because he didn't have deep enough pockets. So know your numbers first. Yeah. Make sure you've got a viable business. Look, there's all kinds of reasons to start a business. Yeah. If you're not really fussed about making money out of it, then fine, do what you want. Yeah. But if it's going to be your source of income and how you're going to make a living, then you need to know your numbers. And then first learn your own job and then learn someone else's.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's
brilliant.
Definitely the moral of today's story is definitely that. Exactly. I mean, you've proven it over and over again. Yeah. But Paul, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And we will have a second edition of this because you can tell us a lot about young people, how you support them, all sorts. But I think that's going to be just another episode.
For another day.
Another day, because it's too much. But thank you very much. It was,
thank
again,
you.
I think we were speechless because we were learning so much from you. Incredible.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much. So we hope you've enjoyed today's episode with Paul. If you're watching on YouTube, please do give us a like. We'd really appreciate that. And also, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on Spotify, please do give us a follow. We hope you've really enjoyed today's episode and we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.